Hello, this is Brian from Tavarn Games with another update on Dungeon Maker. So this program has become my obsession for the last few weeks. I've been making a lot of progress on it. So today I'll be talking about the campaign maps and sort of the campaign management for the Dungeon Master, the interactions in the game itself, so the dice rolling that can be done, the various attacks and magic attacks, as well as the Dungeon Master's interaction and sort of tools they have in the map. But the first thing, though, you'll probably notice is I've updated the UI to make it look a little bit nicer. So I've gone for this sort of old paper motif. You know, it harkens back to the fact that this is simulating a pen and paper tabletop RPG, and that's what it's used for. As well, it kind of got an old school fantasy look to it, and I think it looks pretty nice. Let me know what you think. But the first thing we're going to pop into is the Edit Campaign menu. So we could add a new campaign, but we're just going to use this test one I've been playing around with. So if you pop into that, we've got all the maps that have been made for it will show up here. Once you get a whole bunch of maps, some scroll arrows will show up for you. But we have this new button, this Edit Campaign Map button. So let's click on that. And we get this campaign map editor. Now, it is pretty basic at this point. I only have the ability to add some mountains. You can place those anywhere, some trees. The sprites will be randomized a little bit just to make it look a little more unique. But those are the only objects I have so far. I hope to add in sort of a series of icons for like towns and castles, as well as like paths and rivers and coastlines and stuff, but none of that's in it quite yet. For now, though, the more important thing is this little menu here. These are the maps you have in that campaign. So I've only got the two here you saw in the previous menu. If we click that, we get this little red flag we can place. Now, I've already got two of them on there, so I'm not going to place it again because I have yet to make an eraser tool that will be coming in the future. But yeah, so these little flag icons are only visible to the Dungeon Master when the game is running. I figured that was important. So let's say, you've got a fortress to the north of the players, and they're walking towards that, and you've got your encounter flag there, and a fortress icon underneath it. So the players will see that fortress icon, which would let them know, oh yeah, we should head for that. But then on the way, if you wanted to have like an ambush, they get ambushed by bandits on the way, you could have another encounter here that, again, only you can see. You only have the flag icon, you have nothing else. So the Dungeon Master could sneakily click on that, and the players will suddenly be in that encounter, and you can sort of have that surprise element still. I figured that was very important for the Dungeon Master to be able to do. So again, these flags will only be visible to the Dungeon Master, not the players. So yeah, let's get out of here, and then let's dive into an actual one of the maps. So again, this is my test map. It's janky as hell. It's just for testing all the features that I'm putting into this game. So the first thing on the editor you'll notice are these little scroll bars or scroll icons for the enemies. So that lets you scroll through the list. There are no restrictions. It'll just keep going forever. I got to put in the stops that prevent it from going too far. But yeah, you can see all the enemies you've got, and any Dungeon Master worth their salt will have tons of the enemies that they can place, and that will these scroll bars allow you to get to them all. And once again, this artwork will not be included with the game. It is just in my own personal version. These are enemies that are being saved to my local data. If you, once this game is available, when you get it, you'll have to put in all the enemies and put in the artwork yourself. If you did create any of this artwork, thank you for your awesome artwork. Don't worry, it won't be sold with the game. I'm not commercializing your art. The other thing that we've got now are these doorways. So if we click that, we can place down a door. You can place them anywhere. I decided not to restrict it to, you have to place them between walls. I think it's up to the map maker, the Dungeon Master, where they go. If you want to have like a magical door in the middle of a room that's not connected to anything, you can do that. Now, when we're placing it, if we press the R key, we can rotate it and place it in different angles and directions so it can open different ways. And the other thing you've almost certainly noticed are these little lock icons on the door. So on the map maker, if the map maker clicks that, it toggles the lock, and that determines whether the door is locked at the start of the encounter. And we'll get into sort of how that changes interactions once we load into a game. But yeah, that's the map maker so far. We've got some fun tools. I have a lot more to add to it, and have this menu here, have it so that instead there's a button here to bring it over for it to be visible, but otherwise it's hidden off screen. and like have one for the walls and one for floors and that, or the different class of objects so that we can have lots of different things to put on the map. But yeah, let's exit to the menu. The other menus, I haven't added too many features, but if we go into the character, I've got this paper motif continued. Again, I think it looks pretty nice. Let me know what you think, or if you think it could be improved upon. But yeah, the action menu looks pretty similar, but we've got, again, the paper motif, and that applies to all these drop downs as well. The button I've added to this, or toggle, sorry, is this auto hit toggle. This would be for like spells like Healing Word. I realized they automatically hit, so and then they just do the damage, or do the effect. So you can check this auto hit, and then it gets rid of this field. When it's saving the action, it just saves the to hit bonus at 99, and then when the game is interpreting the actions, if it sees that the hit bonus is a 99, it knows, okay, this effect, it just automatically happens. It doesn't even bother rolling the dice. It just applies the effect of whatever the action is. And I've also added a little cancel button. Before, you'd have to click the save action button and it would try to add the action. You can see we got an error there because some of these fields are empty. So I have a cancel button to get rid of that menu now, so you can actually just get rid of it without adding a new action. But yeah, so that this character menu, I think it's looking pretty nice. And then let's go to the enemies. So in this case, we have more enemies than can be displayed. So instead of losing them off the bottom of the screen, when you have too many, these arrows show up, letting you scroll through. So those will show up for any of the menus. So once you get a bunch of maps on your campaign or a bunch of different characters, you'll be able to find them. Don't worry. So let's just pop into an enemy. Again, the paper motifs here. The actions are the same as for the characters, except the Dungeon Master will be able to take control of these actions. The other thing I did is these stats, instead of putting in the stats directly, I now have it so that you put in the saving throws. So in the game itself, the only thing the enemy stats were being used for were to calculate the saving throws for magical spells and effects against the enemies. And then I was going through the monster manual and realized some enemies have proficiencies in certain saves, and their proficiency amount is different depending on the enemy. And so the calculation, like calculating the saving throw from the stats, wasn't accurate. So I decided, okay, just put the saving throws in directly. So you pop those in, so you can see he's got high constitution and strength saves. And that way, the game will just directly use these values on the saving throws for all those calculations. And that works just fine. All right, so let's go back. We actually don't need this one anymore. I've got some build windows open. So let's pop those open. And let's actually show you the game. So we're going to have this top one be the Dungeon Master. So they'll start the host. The list of campaigns will show up. We only have my one test campaign. And it will pop right into this encounter map, or the campaign map, sorry. And you can see we've got the UI there. We'll talk about that as we go through. But yeah, let's join that one. So we'll join with this character, join the game, and they'll pop onto the map. So they can move around this map freely. These mountains and trees and icons, they don't stop the character from moving. Like the idea for the campaign map is this is like an actual printed out map that the characters are looking at. And they can just, being able to move around it is just so they can actually move around and see the whole thing. But yeah, you can see these flags aren't visible to the player, but they are visible to the Dungeon Master. So let's pop into one of those. So if we click on a flag, we get a quick little screen there, and then we end up at the new map. So what's actually happening is this is not a separate scene in the game. It's the exact same in-game scene. What the game does is it takes the characters, it moves them way off to the right of the screen, like way past anywhere the Dungeon Master will have placed anything. And I've put that little loading scene text there. And then the maps are cleared. All of the data is erased. The Dungeon Master then grabs the new map, the new encounters maps data, and it syncs that to all the different players. There's a half-second delay so that to make sure all the players can get that data, that it's actually synced to them. And then the characters draw their maps, place, and then move back into the map wherever the starting position is supposed to be, and they'll see it with all the new items. So that little delay is just necessary to make sure the server is syncing the data. What was happening before is I had it all instant, and the player would end up seeing the old map. It would just redraw that because the data hadn't had time to sync. But yeah, so you can see the player can walk around, and we've got this doorway here, and they can't see through a closed door. The door is clearly closed. Let's try interacting with it, and we can't do a thing. Why can't we do anything with that door? Well, if we look at the Dungeon Master screen, you can see the door is locked. So the players can't really interact, can't open it or close it or walk through it. And the Dungeon Master could like have the characters have to go find a key, or maybe the players bash it down with their hammer or burn it down, whatever. Once the Dungeon Master's decided, though, that the players have successfully opened that door, the Dungeon Master can just click it, the icon will shift and show it's unlocked, and then the players can interact. So once the door is open, the player can see through it. Ooh, we have some bandits there. Oh, let's close it. And they can close it. Again, it updates the lighting. If the player steps into that space, they can now step into it when it's unlocked, and it will open that door. They walk through. The door will not automatically close. If the player wants to close it, they can just click it again. They can toggle that door, and we can walk around. Let's actually move this Dungeon Master screen to show a bit more of it. And yeah, we can walk through. Now this door here isn't locked, so the player can just go straight through. They could click this one. You can click it from any distance. I didn't really restrict that. I think that's up to the players in DM of how far away you have to be to open a door. But like something like Magic Hand could make it so that you can open the door from further. And it's just easier to make it so that no matter where the players click, it opens, and the DM can decide if they were allowed to open it or not. But yeah, so the doors are all open here, and we can see through them. So yeah, we got that. Now for this other one, let's join with another character. Now let's say somebody shows up a bit late. They join in after the campaign's already going. Well, when they join the game, they're not going to end up on the campaign map. Once again, that map doesn't exist at the moment. They're going to join at the starting position of whatever map is currently loaded. So we hit join game, and boom, we're on it. And the doors also sync, so all the doors that were opened by a previous player will be open to this. So we can see that's already open. We can walk through. These other doors are open. But now, let's say, though, the DM is just like all the players are way off somewhere else on the map, and somebody joins, and the DM's got to get this player to go join them. Well, the DM can click and grab them, and they'll start moving the player. It's not visible to the player being moved. I just realized, though, that it is visible to this player. It's being synced. And yeah, but once the DM lets go of them, it will drop them wherever the DM places them. So now a useful thing that could be used for, yeah, as I said, syncing the player up with the party, getting them over there, or maybe they're teleported by an enemy spell. Oop, get them outside the map. Another thing, though, like let's say you've got like a palisade wall around a fort, and the players decide they're going to climb over the wall using a ladder. Well, instead of making it like really complicated where the DM would have to like edit the map during the game to make that wall passable, because otherwise it's impassable, or, you know, the players blow up the wall and it's supposed to disappear, well, the DM can just drag them and drop them, move them through the wall, move all the players across, and that way they have the players still have the creativity to suggest ways around obstacles, and if the Dungeon Master likes it, boom, they can just move them through that obstacle, and then the players can continue on their way and take control of their characters back, and they're where they're supposed to be. Here, let's open this door. And yeah, so that's a little Dungeon Master tool. And now let's go into the actions and dice rolling. So you can see the different windows we have. Let's say we use a longbow attack, and let's target this bandit here. So it'll show here, we use for the player that did the action, it will show their action, the effect of it, so whether it hit or missed, as well as the actual dice roll, how much damage it did and who's it against. And then that message is also sent to the group as with the name of whoever did the actions. The character name, or in the case of the Dungeon Master, it'll say Dungeon Master. And everyone can see that. That is synced up. So you know what everyone's doing and what their actions were. And the player can see their latest one right here. So I think that looks pretty good. Now let's say, though, magic spells. So I put in just like a couple spells. I think I made up Fire Cone. But yeah, like this would be a cone spell. So for cones, it centers on the character and then rotates around wherever they're aiming. And then all the players can see it. So you can see it syncs up for the Dungeon Master and the other players. For the effect of the cone, the area of effect I've given it. Oh, and yeah, if we move around, the cone moves with us. So for the area of effect, I've decided that any enemies that are within the area of the cone that have the center of their object, of their portrait, in that area are affected. But it has to be the center. So like, let's say I did it here. You can see this one bandit over here. is barely in it, well, he won't be affected. I just consider that not enough overlap to qualify. If the Dungeon Master and the players decide that, no, that anyone that it's touching is affected, you could just manually roll on a separate hit for that guy. But I think it's clear, like, it's for cone magic and that, the way I use it is that it only, like, you have to be decently within the cone to be affected, and that's the way the game is simulating. So if we do that, we should hit those 3 guys. This guy wasn't under it enough, and yeah, we did. So we hit the bandits, the bandit captain, the other bandit here, and it'll show you this whether the save roll succeeded or not. So that was their rolls. It rolled for them, and they all failed their save roll, and it shows the damage they took and who got hit, and these guys would be dead at that point. Now, the other thing, though, is I didn't want cone magic to, like, go through walls. I don't think it's supposed to. So there also has to be line of sight from the center of the caster to the center of the enemy in order for it to hit as well. So if we look, like, I've put this Allosaurus here, and we've got the skeleton here. If we were to fire this in this direction, you can see on the DM screen above, the Allosaurus is underneath that cone, but we don't have line of sight. So if we click, we don't actually hit them. And actually, it turns out we don't have line of sight to the center of the skeleton either, in that case. So if we wanted to hit those, like, we'd have to reposition so we can see them. And then, boom, it hit both the skeleton and that dinosaur. And that's also, like, just so the cone magic, like, doesn't go through a wall, and all that. Again, if the DM decides, no, that skeleton really should have been hit, you can manually roll using the dice over here. Like, you just be like, boom, D20, okay, I roll a 14. So that's the save fails, and then it's however many dice damage, and just add it up, and boom. You can do that, and the DM could then update the health manually. As well, immunities and resistance are taken into effect. So if we hit this dragon, they're immune to fire. So yeah, it won't do any damage. It just does 0 no matter what the roll is. Now, we also, in the game, there's also area magic. So everybody knows Fireball. It's a classic spell. So let's select that. And you get this circle that shows the area of effect. So this is the size Fireball is. For those, though, most of these spells, it says it goes around walls. So for this, there is no restriction. No matter if anything is under it, it's going to get hit, including yourself and any other players. So if we did it right in the middle here, oh, there we go. Don't know why it didn't fire off. It hits everything that's under it. We hit the can, hits everything, so that'll hit the frost giant. I gotta figure out what happened here. That didn't work. I will fix that bug later. But yeah, so for the most part, it's working. I'll bug hunt that, but you know, this gives the effect is there, and we can cast that anywhere. Oh, we accidentally clicked the door at the same time. So there's multiple interactivity. When you click through, it saw we hit everything. But yeah, so the magic is syncing, and those actions are going. Again, this guy, I've just given him his basic attacks. You know, he can hit. There's no range limit to that. I think that's up to the player and the DM what the appropriate range is, because some melee attack so far. Now, the stats for those things are in the game, so I'll probably incorporate those in the future. I just haven't done that yet. Okay, so like that's the players. Well, let's go to the DM and what they can do. So the DM can select an enemy, at which point the current health of the enemy shows up here. If the DM wants to update the health, they can. So let's say he says he's at 128. That updates. Here, let's pretend he was he was quite injured and he's all bloody. Oh, no. Let's say he got healed or whatever. We can update that. And then the DM can move them wherever they want. So you see, we can even move them through walls. The reason for that, originally I was thinking, oh yeah, we'll have it so that it's restricted like player movement and they can't walk through walls. But there's enemies like ghosts and enemies that can fly and that wouldn't be restricted by that. So I made it so the DM can just move them wherever. And it's up to the DM sort of what appropriate movement will be for different enemies. But they can move around. And then the DM also has the enemy actions. They can select those. So we have Great Axe selected. Let's click on this guy. And boom, we hit him for 22 damage. Ooh, his health is getting low. You know, we can do the rock, and it will show, again, the Dungeon Master did rock and who it's against. So, Lander's at 0 health again. So he could just do his save throws, whatever, or somebody comes and heals him, and he can update his health. And that will be taken into account. I don't show these X's and health on the players themselves. They can communicate that themselves. But yeah, so we have those effects. If here, let's go back to the DM. If the DM clicks the currently selected enemy again, it will deselect them and they can move around. The sort of action window here lets them know what's going on there. Now we can click on this guy. We can see his actions. Another feature I've added, and this applies to everyone, is this button here. Because we're really zoomed out, the UI kind of scrunched up too much, just because the window's small. This should say add actions, and then this button will have a plus on it. So if we click that, it lets you add an action in the middle of the game to your action list. So, let's say the DM gave you a new weapon, so like a +1 rapier, and so you're like, oh yay! So that normally does 1d8, and let's say you're 5 and 3, and then this is 6 and 4. So this lets you immediately add an action to the game that you can use in it for the DM giving you items, and that new one shows up. Now this does not save to the character sheets. I haven't put in that feature yet. I may or may not. For now, if you want to have that action permanent, when the game's over, you could then add it into your character sheet itself, and then it will load into future games. And again, it's the same thing for the DM. The DM can add an action for the enemy. Now, that action will only be visible while that enemy is selected. It will not permanently stay. I don't think the DM would ever actually need to use that. But yeah, the players themselves can add actions, so that will allow the DM to give them new items and the players to immediately use them. Given that I don't have an inventory system, because the inventory system, the Dungeon Master would have to add all these items into their library of items, and that just complicates things quite a bit and adds work. This way, you're just like, yeah, you got a new weapon. Okay, the player can type it in immediately and be good to go. The other thing is advantage, disadvantage buttons. We'll just change the dice roll. So, let's say we get advantage on this guy. So this would give us advantage. And then we could select advantage. I know longbow's not melee weapon, but whatever, we'll just do it. And it will roll 2 dice, and it will take the higher. If disadvantage isn't selected, it will roll 2 dice and take the lower. So in this case, the lower one was 2, and it missed. So that way you can have those rolls affected. And again, same for the Dungeon Master. Not sure what happened there. Okay, that's a fun little glitch. Let's pretend we didn't see that. Don't know why it just selected somebody. Oh, no, I know why. Because as you're clicking this button, he was underneath it, and it interpreted, as I said, both hits at once. So I do have to restrict the mouse clicks. I haven't done that yet. But yeah, you can do advantage and disadvantage in the rolls. And yeah, we've got skill checks for the players. It will tell you what it was, and it automatically adds on your proficiencies to that. So you can do the checks, and the Dungeon Master will be able to see what you rolled, and it tells them exactly what it was. You can roll your saving throws manually if you need to. They will be rolled automatically for enemy effects that require saving throws, like Fire Breath's a saving throw, so you can see it automatically for each of the characters. So Lander Brightwood failed his saving throw, and Rinvar's passed their saving throw. So it's automatically dealing with that for you. Well, that's all I have for you this week. I'm not going to do a code dive. My last video ended up way too long. So if you are curious about any of the coding, let me know in the comments. Any of these features you're wondering how I did it, and I might make a separate code dive video for these features. But thank you for watching. If you feel like supporting my work and helping me get this product out there, please support me on Patreon. If you feel like subscribing for more of these updates, please do so, and have a good day.